friends, my name is Joss and welcome back to Squibbles Reads. Before we get started, just a quick update. I just want to say thank you because I've just reached 500 subscribers. I'm so blown away because there are actually 500 people out there that want to follow me and listen to me talk about books. So thank you guys so much for your support. Since the end of the year craze is over with the top books that I read in 2015, the most hated books that I read in 2015, my New Year's resolutions, the series that I want to start, the most anticipated release, etc. I want to bring some more refreshing content to my channel. Specifically, I want to post reviews of books that are lesser known or books that are really popular that have spoken to me in a different way than other people. I also have some discussion videos planned on topics like diversity and reading outside of your comfort zone. I'm really excited for all of these changes, so now let's get into the wrap-up. In December, I read 16 books, so this is the second half of my wrap-up where I talk about the books that I read by myself. I will link the first half in the down bar below where I talk about my buddy reads. I really rarely give 5 stars to books, but in December I read 3 books that I gave 5 stars. 2 of them were Illuminae by Amie, Kaufman, and Kristoff, and also Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. I have shouted about these books way too much, so I am also going to leave my top 5 books of 2015 down below as well. In December, I listened to Cinder by Marissa Meyer, the first book in the Lunar Chronicles series, on an audiobook. It's a retelling of Cinderella set in a dystopian world with some sci-fi elements called the Eastern Commonwealth, specifically in New Beijing. It does kind of suffer from first book syndrome, where the plot does take a little while to pick up because the author does have to explain the system of everything, but once the plot did pick up, I totally loved it and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I also read The Silkworm by Robert Galbraith, aka J.K. Rowling, the second book in the Cormoran Strike series. Y'all know I loved the first book, and I liked this one probably even better. A lady one day comes into Cormoran's office. Cormoran is a PI, and he's also a disabled veteran. She hires him to find her husband who went missing. He's kind of like a weird, quirky, eccentric writer, and his name is Owen Quine. So they end up finding an unpublished manuscript of his where he paints all the people that have wronged him in his life in a totally weird, creepy light. So they all become suspects for his disappearance. This book was definitely darker and grittier than the first one. It also had some like Hannibal-esque elements to it. It had a lot of gore and violence and some sexual themes, so if you are averse to those, this may not be the book for you. I honestly loved it just as much, if not more, than the first one, and I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read was Nowhere But Here by Renee Carlino. I really loved her other book, Before We Were Strangers, but unfortunately this one did fall a little flat for me. It was really insta-lovey, and it was almost like it was written by a different person completely. I couldn't finish it. I put it down after about 70% and I gave it 2 stars. I also read Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Unfortunately, I did end up giving this book 2.5 stars, but I do have some reasons for it. First, the character arcs are really lopsided. So Miles, the male love interest, we got to know him really well through his backstory, but unfortunately, Tate, the female protagonist, we didn't get to know very well outside of the context of her relationship with Miles. So all we got to know about her was really that she's a nurse, that she has a brother who she's close with, and that she's in love with Miles, and her family is full of pilots. I have also previously read a few of Colleen Hoover's other books, and I feel like all of them have really the same mood and tone and all follow the same kind of arc. At the beginning, we meet an angsty girl who ends up being angsty for a little. Then she meets a boy. They date, eventually the boy screws up, and then they reconcile. I know that Never Never is a little bit different from this, but overall, the tone and storylines have been very similar to me as a reader. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like her books differ very much from one another, and I haven't really been blown away by her writing either. Then I read Misconduct by Penelope Douglas, which is a new adult novel. The female protagonist, Easton, used to be a professional tennis player, but her career got derailed. One night, at a party, before she starts her new job as a teacher, she meets a man and they have a flirtatious relationship just for that night. Later, after she starts her new job, it actually turns out that this man is the father of one of her students. In new adult novels, what I really look for is female protagonists who hold their own and who say, this is what I'm going to decide and this is why. Whether they decide to begin a sexual relationship or not begin a sexual relationship. It's not the sex that matters, it's the agency that does. It's the ability to own your own decisions. I personally did really like Easton as a protagonist. I thought she was plucky, spunky, not afraid to speak her mind, owned all of her decisions, and she was also a good teacher and a good educator. She wasn't afraid to take chances in her classroom, which I really admired. It was really a pleasant surprise for me, this book, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So at the beginning of the video, I talked about 3 books that I gave 5 stars, and the third book is Emmy and Oliver by Robin Benway. Oliver comes back to town 10 years after he was kidnapped by his dad. You'd think that from the cover and the description of the book that this would be a totally cheesy YA novel, but this was absolutely not the case. It was honestly a fantastic lesson in empathy. So when Oliver comes back, his parents and his friends' parents kind of expect him to be happy and to fit in because they're making a bunch of effort, which is totally understandable. However, it seemed like they were pushing him at a pace that was comfortable for them, but not necessarily comfortable for Oliver. His friend group allowed him to grow and express feelings at his own pace. When he was scared and confused, even though they may not have understood it, they gave him space to be vulnerable with them and didn't automatically try to make him happy or try to cheer him up. They really sat with his discomfort well, and sometimes when people are upset, that's really all that we can do. We can sit with their discomfort and allow them to be vulnerable and open up. It really wasn't a grand epic adventure like Illuminae or like Harry Potter, but it was so quietly beautiful and it really spoke to me. Finally, I read We Were Liars by E. Lockhart and I gave it 3 stars. It was totally my fault that it did not rate higher because honestly, I'm really good at guessing plot twists. And I really wish I didn't guess this one because that's what all like the hoopla surrounding this book is. Aside from that, I honestly didn't really see very much character growth in anyone, and everything seemed to be written at about the same volume, so even though the plot had like ebbs and flows and highs and lows, it all ended up being pretty average and kind of flat for me. So that is it for the second half of my December wrap-up. If you guys have any comments, questions, or anything else, please leave me a comment down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!